Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Haradhan Nandas from University of La Laguna and Yelena Nausert from University of La Laguna and Universidad Europea de Canarias. The paper we're presenting today is called Constrained Sheets, Queer Corpoetics in the Poetry of Akhil Katyal. This paper examines the poetry of Akhil Katyal through the lens of queer corpoetics, the grounding the queer body as a material, effective, and political force. Following Lauren Berland and Michael Warner's insistence that queer intimacy is always already public and regulated, we approach Katyal's work as a sustained interrogation of how desire becomes legible under conditions of surveillance, criminalization, and respectability. The deliberately provocative phrase "cum-stained sheets" is not intended as shock value, but as a critical orientation. Signals a refusal to read queer intimacy as metaphorically purified or aesthetically sanitized. Instead, Katyal poetry insists, much like Sarah Sakmet's work on orientation and bodily proximity, on the persistence of embodied traces, fluids, gestures, rooms, and effective aftermaths that refuse erasure. Situated within the India's socio-political context marked by the long history of Section 377 and the policy of queer domesticity, Katyal poems locate desire in ordinary, vulnerable spaces, such as bedrooms, rented flats, kitchens, classrooms, crematoriums. Our central argument is that Katyal develops a queer corpoetics in which the body structures the poem's affective economy, transforming intimacy into a mode of descent. By queer corpoetics, we refer to a mode of poetic writing in which the body is not merely represented but functions as an organizing principle of form, affect, and meaning. This concept draws on phenomenological accounts of embodiment, particularly Maurice Merleau-Ponty's understanding of the body as the condition of perception, as well as queer and affect theory. Following Kathleen Stewart's notion of ordinary affects, Katyal's poetry attends to minor gestures and residues rather than grand declarations. Desire is not narrated linearly. Instead, it appears through fragments, touch, fatigue, fluids, spatial arrangements. This aligns with Sarah Ahmed's argument that the bodies are shaped by what they come into contact with and by what they are allowed or forbidden to approach. Importantly, queer corpoetics differ from confessional modes of lyric. As Eve Kosofsky, Sedgwick, and later lyric theorists have noted, queerness often resists transparent self-disclosure. In Katyal's work, intimacy is conveyed not through autobiographical revelation, but through aftermaths. What remains once intimacy has occurred or is about to vanish. The body thus emerges as both presence and trace, pleasure and vulnerability. The corporeal logic is already visible in the first time I hit someone. The poem stages adolescent intimacy through bodily gestures rather than explicit sexual naming, echoing Sedgwick's observation that queer desire often circulates through homosocial proximity before it becomes legible as sexuality. Boys' authority as prefects intersects with class privilege and gender performance, recording Pierre Bourdieu's insight that bodies are disciplined differently across social hierarchies. The key moment, and I'm quoting, "We had slapped each other's naked butts, our loves unbroken by our sin," registers queer intimacy as tactile, playful, and self-unconscious, even as it is respectively framed through modal language. Here, the body functions as an archive of sensation rather than identity. Desire is known through touch and memory, not declaration. This exemplifies queer corpoetics. Intimacy is preserved as a bodily knowledge that precedes both shame and political articulation. I want you to 377 You So Bad. Katyal collapses the distinction between juridical language and erotic speech by transforming section 377 into a verb. The poem enacts what Michael Foucault identifies as the productive power of prohibition. The law does not silence desire, but reshapes and intensifies it. The poem's success, its breathless accumulation of bodily sensation, refuses what just Pipoir critiques as homonormative respectability. Desire here is unruly, illegal, and unapologetically embodied. The body becomes simultaneously the object of regulation and the site of resistance. This is queer corpoetics at its most explicit. The erotic body exposes the violence of legal obstruction by insisting on sensation, pleasure, and proximity. In poems like Oligarch in 1995 and at the Lodi Crematorium, extend queer poetics into the terrain of loss, illness, and death. In Oligarch, the absence of Professor Cyrus' body is countered by an excess of affective presence. Memory, song, and domestic space become sites of queer survival, echoing Douglas Crimson's system, the mourning can function as a political practice. Housing, respectability, and professional titles emerge as fragile shields against erasure. The question, what gives us this respect, underscores the conditional nature of queer belonging, particularly within institutional spaces. Similarly, in 1995, situates the HIV crisis within lived temporality rather than tragic abstraction, aligning with Paula Treitschler's critique of AIDS as mythologized discourse. Intimacy persists through care, memory, and shared time, resisting narratives of inevitable loss. Finally, at the crematorium, queer grief unfolds publicly, yet remains misrecognized. Recalling Warner's work on counterpublics, even in death, the queer body remains politically legible through hugs, rain, and waiting. In conclusion, we may say that reading Akhil Katyal's poetry through the framework of queer corpoetics enables a deep understanding of how intimacy operates at the intersection of body, language, and power. Katyal's poems do not monumentalize queer experience. Instead, they attend to residues, gestures, and ordinary spaces where desire briefly settles. By foregrounding embodied effort and erotic aftermath, Katyal challenges dominant modes of literary decorum and heteronormative affective regimes. Queer poetics, as articulated here, offers a critical method for reading queer texts that approach intimacy not as a confession, but as an aesthetic and political practice grounded in vulnerability, materiality, and persistence. Thank you so much, and you may find here some references.